So what are we doing? Weberian
on age.
Okay, short video on Weberian views of age. Outline and assess Weberian explanations of age inequality. Contemporary UK, 40 marks. So what should we put in the first bit?
Define age.
Okay, how would we define age? What keywords are we going to use there?
The biological,
biological and sociological explanations. Biological and social factors, socially constructed. You talk about different categories. What are the three main categories for age?
birth, marriage, death.
Birth, death, marriage,
No,
death. Death's not an age category, like there's some dead people over there.
Old age, middle age and young adult.
Yeah. Young, middle-aged, old age. But birth, marriage and death are part of that discussion, of course, because adulthood involves the issue of marriage and work, childbearing, and of course death is associated with old age. Youth is associated with transition from youth to adulthood. Weberian views. So what are they overall? What types of views?
Goes to Marx.
Goes to Marx.
So similar to Marx.
Similar to Marxism. How is it similar to Marxism?
Focus on not just cultural capital but also status and party. So they don't just focus on ownership.
Okay, yeah, the ownership bit is what makes it similar to Marxism. So ownership, but they don't just focus on economic ownership, they also focus on market status, and they also focus on status based on non-economic factors, which means other factors like, what other factors?
Your social standing.
Status is social standing, and Marx said it's ownership which gives status and power. Weber says it's important, but it's also market status, it's important. Weber said there's other forms of status that are not economic, such as, basically, age includes class, but also age, gender, ethnicity. So Weber looked at a multi-dimensional approach. He also looked at party, which refers to, what's party, Junaid? What does party refer to?
Such as like Old Boys Network.
Yeah, someone as part of the Old Boys Network might have political power and influence. But that's also to do with their age status. That's also to do with the fact that they're male, and might be to do with the fact that they're white. So, political power and influence is party. So it's to do with your membership of interest groups that represent your group. So, for example, the Old Boys Network is a good example, because they have a range of social characteristics. They might be economically privileged, but also privileged in terms of their age, gender, ethnicity.
So party is just your social links that can help you advance your situation.
Well, party is to do with your membership of interest groups, or the groups that represent and support you, give you influence. Okay, so you've got interest groups, and your level of power might be influenced by your social connections, like who you know, which are the things you're talking about, yes. And that adds to your influence and power.
You could say, Weberian say the aging process is, so I think you already said it, is associated with the status and power.
Status and power. Yeah. So you've got status and you've got power, okay, and obviously we can talk about market and market status and ownership for different age
Would you
groups.
quickly mention other theories and what they use?
You're going to need to.
And would you want to mention it in the intro? Do you like a sentence or anything?
Yeah, in a sentence. So what could we put in the sentence?
Functionists say that. Everyone says a lot of stuff. Marxists say that older people are not active in work and consume as much, and under 40s are cheap labour. And New Right says talk about state dependency. Postmodernists say active aging, and functionists say they've got the disengagement theory with older people.
Okay, so we can use those points. I would probably put those in the paragraph when I evaluate. But those are good points which you can use, yeah. So you can say that the views in the debate, you just list them. We can say, functionalists, Marxists, neo-Marxists, feminists, interactionists, postmodernists have different views. We'll critically discuss Weberian views. Okay, and then we can go into the actual essay itself. We can explain some of these points a little bit more. The thing that we haven't said to summarise Weberianism overall is that we can say two things. Firstly, it's a structuralist perspective, which is a key point because it just gives you a broad thing that you can say, but that also helps you evaluate because some of the perspectives in the debate will agree with the idea of structuralism. Secondly, do you think it's a consensus or a conflict perspective?
A conflict.
Okay, it's a conflict perspective, you're right. And so we can again use that to critically evaluate strengths and weaknesses from different perspectives. So it's a structuralist conflict perspective, and we can talk about these things, just briefly sum them up. We don't need to explain them in the introduction. We can then explain them here. Okay, these bits can then be explained in the first part there. So we can talk about class, status and party. I can relate it to youth, middle age and old age. And we can talk about each of the different groups in terms of class, status and party. What kind of points do you think we can make then for social class?
For youth?
For youth, or middle age or old age.
So for CSP, would you write youth, middle age and old for each section?
Yeah, we could deal with, within class, status and party, we could deal with, one or two or all of these groups. Okay, because they're age groups. So we could say, for example, for social class, in terms of ownership, which group do you think has the most ownership?
Old age or middle age?
Well, the middle age have the most power and status in society. Traditionally, the old part of that generation which has a lot of land ownership, it's part of the aristocracy. Some people argue that that group's lost their power and that older people have lost status and are less privileged today. What about status? What about market position, market status, the marketplace? So market situation and work situation.
The youth are used as a reserve army of labour. You
Under
could link that in
14s.
because it's Marxist and it's Weberian, similar kind. Or would you have to separate it?
Is that a Marxist concept or is it a Weberian? It's a Marxist concept, so we could use that
For evaluation.
possibly for evaluation later on.
Middle age more in work and
They're working. Okay, so they're economically active. Okay, so that affects their market status. Because if you're economically active, what have you got? What are you accruing? What are you building up that's going to affect your market situation in the future?
Pension.
You're going to build a pension. Okay, so it's going to put you in a better economic position. Is that going to be the same for all old people?
No.
For all middle-aged people or all young people? It's going to be different based on
Your income.
social class. Might be affected by issues like ethnicity and gender as well. So you've got work, you've got pensions, you've got market status, because over the period of time they're working, they're building experience, qualifications, training, and so they've got a better market position, they can sell their skills for more, 40-year-old can sell their skills for more than a 20-year-old. So they've got more experience. It's not always that simple. What about work situation? So we've got market situation in terms of are they working, they've got better income, got more based on skills.
The middle and old age are seen as being in more higher positions of working compared to the youth.
Okay, so they've got more
due to their experience.
Due to experience.
Whereas the youth are put in low-paying jobs.
Right, yes, definitely. So you can say that there's this division in the labour market between the primary labour market and the secondary labour market. Junaid, what's the difference?
Between primary and secondary, primary is first and secondary is from others.
Oh, that's types of data.
Primary is
this is the labour markets.
The low-paid work, and secondary is the high-paid.
Other way around.
Other way around.
Yeah. Primary is like first, so it's the one you want to have first.
Okay.
Okay. So that's better pay, superior pay and income.
Security,
so head teacher,
more secure.
CEO stuff.
Head teacher, CEO, more favourable working conditions. So they'll be in a more pleasant workplace, they've got more autonomy, more freedom and power. Secondary is like the opposite of that, so cleaner and so on.
McDonald's.
Look jobs. Okay. So you can see that the primary and secondary labour markets is a division between the types of jobs that you can get based on the skills, experience and qualifications you have. Young people are still dependent on parents, they're still going through the qualification, they're still getting qualifications. So what they are more likely to do is to work in one of those labour markets as a result of that loss or that lack of skills, qualifications. So what do you think, what labour market will they be in?
Secondary.
So the secondary labour market.
Young people, yeah.
Okay, the book jobs are perfect for young people because they're variable hours, you can fit them around their academic schedule. There's more money to add to that, but they tend to be lower status, less well paid, less likely to be unionised and protected and secure. In terms of working conditions, they're less likely to be pleasant work conditions where you have freedom and autonomy. You might be working behind the counter at McDonald's doing a range of tasks which are less
repetitive.
More repetitive. Exactly.
Could evaluate that with Reserve Army and Labour.
Yeah, you could. What could you say? Do you think that the Marxists would support this view or go against it?
They report it as they see that aristocrats as generally being old age and they're wanting to hang on to their power.
Yeah. So perhaps the owners are old.
Functionalists will talk about meritocracy.
Okay, let's come to the full evaluation in a moment then. Okay, let's finish the Weberian bit first. So we've got the primary and secondary labour market. We've got the issue about how young people are likely to be in the secondary labour market, but we're saying it's more complex because it's a multi-dimensional explanation. The Weberians will take into account the fact that this will be affected by social class. For example, young people in the secondary labour market might come from working class backgrounds. Some young people might get, what's it called?
Internships.
Internships, thank you. So when you get an internship, so a young person, perhaps from a middle class background more often, who's got the resources and networks to make use of that. The party, they might have some political connections or influence in their family or their background or group. Let's go into status and party next then. I think we've covered class, is that okay?
This is class.
Yeah, that was just social class. We just talked about those different groups. Obviously, in terms of power, in terms of property and wealth, we'd say the middle-aged and old more associated with those qualities. We could say as part of the professional groups, they try to maintain their position, and we can come on to that with political power and party.